They told you there was a line between spirit and ledgers. That devotion floats above the price of bread and the rent that stalks your sleep. But the first thing you meet at any holy door is not an angel, it's a box. A basket. A plate. The same choreography repeats itself across stained glass. Minarets. Pagodas. Livestream pulpits with wireless mics and polished smiles. Give, and you shall be welcome. The hymn is mercy, the refrain is money. You were trained to look away from the hand that counts while another hand blesses. But look long enough and you will see the God that never leaves the room. Why is this hidden? Because power prefers soft focus. Because if a truth can be wrapped in ritual, the mind relaxes and the wallet opens. Institutions are living creatures, they eat. They speak of salvation, but they budget for electricity. They preach transcendence, but they negotiate vendor rates for LED walls and parking security. This is not blasphemy. This is anatomy. The body has organs. The organ that pumps the loudest is capital. And when you grasp that, innocence turns to vision, and vision quietly becomes leverage. You want a gentler answer. You want love to float above cash like incense, untouched by the grime of transactions. You want respect to fall like rain, unbiased. I wanted that too. I believed character could churn stone into bread, loyalty into shelter, integrity into opportunity. Then the room changed temperature the day my balance changed. My ideas, same words, same breath suddenly registered. The nods were heavier. The laughter came quicker. The chair they offered me was closer to the center of the table. It wasn't a miracle. It was the math that governs human proximity. Resources bend gravity. A woman once swore that what she sought was real, and she meant it until realism sent its invoice. Pressure speaks in practical tongues. Love doesn't die first, patience does. And men you call brothers will listen like kings when you carry the one thing that makes decisions easier for them. Your absence of it becomes a spectral presence. You are there but muted. Like a song the algorithm refuses to push. This is not cruelty. It is the hierarchy that hums beneath politeness. Money is not the only language. It is the one dialect everyone secretly studies. You've seen the faces on the bills. Notice their silence. The dead are useful because they cannot change their minds. The living can be compromised. The dead are proof that memory outlasts morality. Currency is the contract between time and appetite. It moves after you stop. If that thought chills you, let it. You were promised immortality through legacy. And then you learned legacy needs an endowment. Your name lasts longer when it can pay its own light bill. Here's a sentence they edited to disarm you. Not, money is the root of all evil. But, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Love the clinging, the worship, the kneeling without questions is the rot. They deleted one word and you accepted a script designed to keep you harmless. A prince who fears sin more than insignificance abdicates without a battle. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Writes Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. Fear, in this frame, is not cruelty, it is consequence. Money is consequence made visible. It disciplines attention. It compels response. It is the instrument by which a whisper becomes a policy. You want purity? Purity is a museum piece, admired, roped off, never allowed to touch the mechanics. A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise. Machiavelli warns from the other side of comfort. You can moralize about that or understand it. Effectiveness is the ethic of those who must deliver. The hospital needs donors before it needs ideals. The movement needs logistics before it sings anthems. Revolutions write poetry on banners. But victory is financed. You can call this dirty. Dirt is what accumulates on hands that actually build. And yet, the deeper you go, the less cartoonish the villain becomes. The politician takes the check because the opponent will. The CEO cuts costs in one country to keep plants open in another. The pastor expands a campus because the crowd is already standing in the aisles. The world is a chessboard. Only children demand that every move be beautiful. Adults count the pieces left on Sunday night. But then the quiet heresy. Even love reports to the ledger when the storm season lengthens. Poverty is not noble. It is noisy. It is resentment with a calendar. It is affection tested by invoices. You can elevate the soul from a mat on the floor, but you will chant with a distracted heartbeat if the landlord is knocking. Marcus Aurelius leaves you a rope dropped from a stern sky. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. True, but power over mind is not a warrant to ignore the price of bread. The Stoic steadies the hand still needs grain. Here's the paradox that turns boys into men. Money is both a tool and a test. Treat it as a god and it owns you. Treat it as a taboo and it avoids you. Treat it as a lever and the world begins to shift an inch at a time beneath your feet. Nietzsche smirks from the ridgeline. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The why gives you aim. The how asks for payment. The bill is due in time. Focus. Reputational risk. The boredom of repetition. The quiet denial of immediate comfort. If your why cannot afford the how, it will perish as a slogan on a hoodie. And here's the part nobody wants to frame. There are layers to the game. Survival is the floor where oxygen costs money. Freedom is the room where options begin to appear. Power is the level where your calendar writes other people's calendars. Most argue about ethics while trapped on the first floor. Gasping. Philosophy is a luxury until rent is not a riddle. Lao Tzu whispers through the paper walls. The soft overcomes the hard. Water wears stone. Adapted from the Tao Te Ching. Flow is not surrender, it is the strategy of endurance. To move from panic to posture, you must become liquid in a rigid world, shaping, carving, refusing to break. You have been paying the invisible tax of poverty, time surrendered to short horizons. Health dissolved by cortisol, dignity traded for tolerances you despise. Respect follows value, in a material theater. Value often wears a material costume. You are not wrong to hate this. You are wrong to pretend you can wish it away. A tool you refuse to touch is still a tool that shapes your life in someone else's hands. So the premise resolves into an instruction without sounding like one. Stop lying to yourself about the altar. Call the god by its name. Then refuse to kneel. Stand. Negotiate. Learn the markets that determine the temperature of your days. Become dangerous in the specific way that does not draw blood, dangerous because you can walk. The most spiritual sentence in a capitalist empire is, no. No to the gig that insults your hours. No to the room that feeds on your silence. No to dependence dressed as devotion. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Machiavelli notes, they prize appearance over action until inaction rearranges the furniture. Let your results speak in a grammar everyone understands. And yet, here's the thread you must not drop. Do not confuse leverage with identity. Money is a sword, you're the hand. A hand that shakes is dangerous to everyone in the room. Return to the still point between deal and deed. Guard your interior like a fortress with open gates. Welcome truth. Repel flattery, ration outrage, and budget your attention as if it were platinum. When you do, the city outside those gorgeous, predatory avenues will begin to acknowledge your terms. The crescendo is solitude, not loneliness, but chosen distance. You will build it when the noise of advice becomes a fog. In that chamber, you will inventory what you will not sell, what you will not fake, what you will not forgive in yourself. Power without that inventory is theater. Power with it becomes a climate. The right people walk in without being asked. The wrong people suffocate and leave. This is not magic. This is filtration powered by standards. Standards funded by options. Options purchased by value you created while others were posting about virtue. If this unsettles you, good. It means the spell is breaking. A calm man is not numb, he is oriented. He walks past the donation box with clear eyes. He gives when it aligns, not when he's shamed. He votes with money and with silence and with exits. He does not announce his ethics, he operationalizes them. He learns the dark so his people can live in brighter rooms. He can bear the smear that follows any adult decision because he understands the rule beneath the rules. Do not lose the frame. Do not sell the center. Do not outsource the why. Walk with me to the threshold. On one side is performance, the humble speech, the noble alack, the pious shrug. On the other side is ownership, the ledger you read, the bargain you shape, the empire you keep small enough to steer and large enough to shelter. Step across, not because money makes you holy, it does not. Because it allows you to choose the battles worth bleeding for. Choice is the cleanest luxury. If this made you bristle, it's working. If it made you breathe slower, it's working. If it made you see the plate, the box, the basket for what it is, a ritual of resources, then the world just tilted a degree in your favor. Keep your soul. Sharpen your strategy. And remember, the altar was never the problem. The kneeling without clarity was. They said salvation was free. But every Sunday, the priest passes a cup. And every believer, eyes half closed in reverence, reaches for their wallet like it's part of the ritual. No one questions it. They tell themselves it's gratitude, it's contribution, it's love, but deep inside, something older and quieter whispers, it's transaction. Here's the forbidden truth: every institution that preaches detachment has mastered the art of attachment. You think temples live on incense? You think the cathedral glows on faith alone? The marble, the microphone, the air conditioning, these are sermons too. Carved in budget and logistics. Faith is funded, morality is monetized, even your guilt, priced at 10%, becomes a recurring subscription to redemption. They tell you, money can't buy salvation. But they'll still pass the plate to make sure your seat in heaven stays reserved. You look at it and think it's hypocrisy. It's not, it's hierarchy. The church, the office, the relationship, they all run on unseen economies. Affection, loyalty, status currencies that fluctuate with circumstance. What you call sacred, they call scalable. Here's the paradox. When the sacred needs maintenance, it becomes a business. The moment an idea must survive rent, it learns to wear a price tag. And you can curse it, or you can understand it, because pretending to float above the system keeps you chained to it. Freedom begins the second you stop lying about what everything costs. Machiavelli saw this before the world had credit cards. Men forget more easily the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Think about that. The wound of love heals slower than the wound of pride, but both fade faster than the wound of loss. You think people defend their gods out of devotion? Watch what happens when their funding is threatened. People guard their gods the way they guard their income, through fear, habit, and illusion. And yet, here's the twisted elegance. Money is not evil, it's truth. It's the mirror that reflects what we actually value. Stripped of sentiment, when someone says, it's not about the money, it always is. It's about the power the money represents, the ability to walk away, to say no without explanation, to build your own altar when theirs demands too much kneeling. You think you're pure because you hate money? That's still worship. Hatred is attention. Detachment, real detachment, is using it like a sword, clean, precise, never as identity. Money is not the goal, it's the permission slip for the life you've already chosen. Without it, even your morals have to beg. Every ideology hides a spreadsheet. Even love demands accounting. What have you done for me? What do I mean to you? Who else is getting your time? These are invoices disguised as intimacy. The priest passes a cup, your lover passes a silence. Both are asking the same thing. Show me what I'm worth to you. The Stoics warned you to master desire, not erase it, to govern the self, not reject the world. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants, wrote Epictetus. But the modern distortion turned that into passivity. You're not noble because you own nothing, you're disposable. The monk in the mountains can afford his stillness because someone else carries his food up the hill. Poverty is only romantic from the outside. So, what do you do with this knowledge? You stop choosing between the soul and the system. You let them coexist, but never confuse who serves whom. Money is your soldier, not your savior. You send it to build, to defend, to test. You let it reveal the shape of your discipline. Because the way you spend is the way you think. And if your spending is chaotic, your mind is too. When you start earning through your principles, something inside you changes. You stop seeking approval, you start offering value. You stop chasing comfort, you start building leverage. You stop speaking like a believer, you begin acting like an architect. That's when morality becomes geometry, balance, proportion, clarity. But here's the danger. Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. When you finally hold it, you'll see what you've always been hiding from yourself. If you were kind out of weakness, power will make you cruel. If you were humble out of fear, power will make you arrogant. But if you've stared into the abyss of necessity and didn't flinch, power will make you serene. You'll understand why Machiavelli said, "The ends justify the means," not as permission for evil, but as a compass for survival. The world doesn't ask if you meant well, it measures if you can deliver. Intention is a whisper, results echo. And still, amid this cold arithmetic, you must remember, gold cannot buy grace. Only awareness can. Lao Tzu wrote, He who knows he has enough is rich. But the wise don't read that as poverty, they read it as control. To have enough is not to own less, it is to stop being owned. When you finally grasp that, you stop resenting the cup that passes every Sunday. You understand that every system demands tribute, and the only question is whether you're paying in money, time, or self. You start choosing your altars carefully. Some take your freedom, some multiply it. The mature mind no longer rebels against the existence of power, it studies its flow. Then bends it, like water carving through stone, like silence reshaping a conversation, like withdrawal teaching presence. You stop asking for fairness. You start seeking clarity, because clarity, once purchased, is irreversible. And as you walk out of the church, the mosque, the meeting room, the date, you'll notice, every room has a cup, every man has a price, every god, a tax, and that's fine, because once you see the mechanism, it can no longer control you. You can give without illusion. You can refuse without guilt. That is the rebirth Machiavelli never wrote, but every strategist lives: to act without apology, to believe without blindness, to buy without being bought. If that unsettles you, it's because you still want the comfort of ignorance. But ignorance is expensive, and you've been paying the interest your entire life. Stop, count, breathe, then pay with awareness, not obedience. The priest may still pass the cup next Sunday, but this time, when you drop your coin, it will be on your terms. And that changes everything. The world worships freedom but fears those who truly possess it. You've seen it, the unease when a man moves without permission, when his silence cannot be bought with validation, when he acts without needing applause. Society pretends to admire independence, yet everything it builds, education, religion, even love, is designed to tame it, because a sovereign mind is unpredictable, and unpredictability threatens control. That's why systems preach obedience disguised as virtue. Be humble, they say, when they mean be compliant. Be patient, when they mean wait while I advance. Be grateful, when they mean don't question the hierarchy that feeds me first. Every commandment has an agenda, even the moral ones. The wise do not reject morality, they trace its financing. You must learn to hear the hum beneath the hymn, to sense when advice is strategy in disguise. A lion told to eat grass does not become righteous, he becomes weak. And weakness, in the jungle of men, is not innocence, it's advertisement. Here's the forbidden symmetry. The same qualities that make you harmless in crowds make you powerful in solitude. Detachment, restraint, observation, the very traits mocked in youth become weapons in maturity. While others drown in validation, you measure silence. While they bargain for belonging, you invest in awareness. You stop reacting and start designing. Machiavelli whispered a truth most men still cannot bear. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success, than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. And yet that's your calling, to introduce a new order within yourself. To revolt not against governments, but against the soft tyranny of your own conditioning. The enemy isn't out there. It's the voice inside that wants comfort disguised as peace. The fatigue that mistakes numbness for calm. The habit of asking for permission to exist. You will notice how people flinch when you stop apologizing. They call it arrogance, because they cannot tell the difference between confidence and independence. They prefer the man who doubts himself. It reassures them their own chains are normal. When you walk free, you become a mirror they can't look into without shame. That's why real growth demands exile. You will walk alone for a while. Not because you're broken, but because your frequency change. Most people aren't ready to hold a conversation that doesn't revolve around escape. You'll see them drink to forget, gossip to feel alive, post to prove they exist. You'll learn compassion, but not indulgence. You'll help, but not at your expense. Because empathy without boundaries is just self-betrayal with a halo. The Stoics called this ataraxia, tranquility in motion. Not the stillness of the dead, but the calm of the captain who knows the storm will pass. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And yet, most men spend their entire lives decorating the outside, while leaving the mind an empty, haunted palace. To reclaim sovereignty, you must audit the architecture of your life like a strategist inspecting his fortress. Ask yourself, who supplies your peace? Who rents space in your head? Whose opinion alters your temperature? If the answer isn't you, then your empire has leaks. You don't have to renounce the world, only own your entry points into it. Every yes is an open gate. Every no is a wall. Balance them like defenses and trade routes. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, effortless alignment with reality. Effortless doesn't mean passive, it means precise. The sword doesn't force the cut, it finds the gap. In time, you'll realize strength isn't loud. It's selective. The king doesn't argue with the court. The general doesn't explain the map to the foot soldiers. The master doesn't post his progress. He simply moves, and the air rearranges. Nietzsche warned, whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become one. Power is fire, it warms. It destroys. It demands control. The moment you use it to prove something, it begins using you. That's why the ultimate form of dominance is restraint. When you can strike but choose timing. When you can speak but prefer silence. When you can conquer but instead refine. You will know you've arrived when you no longer crave to be understood. Because understanding is a currency of the insecure, the need for confirmation that one's truth still fits the market. A sovereign mind no longer markets itself. It moves like a shadow seen only by those meant to follow. And then, in that sacred quiet, something rare happens. Ambition and peace shake hands. You stop chasing outcomes and start curating quality of thought, of presence, of time. You measure success not by reach, but by depth. You realize that legacy is not what they remember, it's what they cannot undo after you're gone. This is where philosophy meets reality. Where the monk and the Machiavellian finally agree, control begins inside. But unlike the monk, you don't retreat from the world, you return to it sharper, quieter, and ungovernable. So when the priest passes the cup again, whether it's money, praise, or approval, you'll smile. You'll give if you choose. Not because you must. You'll leave not because you're offended, but because your time has matured into something sacred, direction. If this unsettles you, good. It means you're remembering the architecture that was always yours. The temple you were meant to build wasn't in the city. It was under your ribcage. Guard it. Expand it. And when they ask who gave you permission to live this freely, tell them the truth no one taught you in school. No one gave it, I took it back.